are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Welcome. There we go. Back in there. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College League Podcast. I'm Dylan Able to take on Twitter. He talked about the latest in Auburn basketball news as March Madness officially underway as the bracket came out not too long ago. Of course, you look over here in the bottom left corner. Correction, sorry, my right, y'all's left. You can see the College League Bracket Challenge. I made a little QR code for y'all. Made it a little too large at that. But the bracket is officially out, and your Auburn Tigers are the number one overall seed in this year's bracket. And, of course, I've heard some mixed reviews about it. I had it pulled over my phone over here about what Auburn will who Auburn will look to play, depending on how far they go in the tournament. They will be, since being the number one seed, they'll be in the play the winner of a play-in game of Alabama State and St. Francis. And then they'll await the winner of Louisville and Creighton. Now, something interesting about the bracket for Auburn is they have some teams on here that have some history. Of course, starting off, bring up the next little bracket under the 5 seed is Michigan. So a chance for Auburn to play against Trey Donaldson, which would be a lot of fun. Trey has been having a great season over there for the Michigan Wolverines. Of course, you also have opportunities for Auburn to get some revenge on Texas A&M. They're also right there on the bracket for the Tigers. And, of course, Yale, the 13th seed in the Southern region. Auburn, if they were to advance to, I believe they'd be the Elite Eight, be an opportunity for Auburn to get revenge on Yale. But I don't know how likely it is Yale gets it past the first couple rounds with their draw. Also in Auburn's bracket is Ole Miss, who will also be playing a play-in team in San Diego State, and North Carolina playing in. Iowa State at the 3 seed, which Auburn has played Iowa State earlier this year, and what was a barn burner of a game, if I'm not mistaken. I was getting confused with the Houston game. Yeah, there we go. 83-81 was that score early on in the year. Lipscomb at the 14 seed, and then the last little bracket, Marquette at the 7 seed. Michigan State got the 2 seed right under Auburn, and they'll be taking on New Mexico State and Bryant. Michigan State will be taking on Bryant, Marquette, and New Mexico State. So, very interesting draw for Auburn. Of course, I've seen some mixed reviews. People have been saying that it's a tough draw, but I think depending on no matter who you are, the bracket draw is going to be a tough one. Of course, across the board, going to the east side, Duke got the 2nd overall seed here. They'll be taking on the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's. They'll be looking to take on the winner of Mississippi State and Baylor, which will be a lot of fun. Mississippi State could be a team to watch out for going forward in the tournament. The next bracket under that is Oregon and Liberty, Arizona and Akron at the 5, 12, 4, and 13 seeds. Underneath that, 6 BYU, 11 VCU, 3 Wisconsin, and 14 you got Montana. And in the last little quad of the East, St. Mary's at the 7 seed will take on Vanderbilt, the 10 seed. And then the 15 seed, Robert Morris, will take on number 2, Alabama, which would be very interesting because right now I don't think Bama's playing at their best level. And, Vanderbilt could be an interesting one. Going forward in the Sweet 16, Wisconsin or BYU could be a team to kind of watch out for taking out Alabama early. Midwest bracket, you got Houston as number 1 seed over there. Number 2, Tennessee, right behind them on the lower quad. Of course, there's a few teams in here that are SEC. I think the only ones really Georgia did not need to play in. They'll be playing Gonzaga in the first round. Texas has to play Xavier for a chance to play against Illinois. And then Kentucky got the 3 seed taking on the Troy Trojans, which is very interesting, the 3-3-4 area. I think Justin Ferguson actually posted about this. Troy, Alabama State, and Auburn, the 3-3-4 area codes all getting in. Very, very cool. Fingers crossed for Troy to knock out Kentucky in the first round. It would be very cool to see that happen. Tennessee, as we mentioned, the 2 seed taking on Wofford, and number 7 seed UCLA taking on number 10 Utah State. And the last little bracket in the west side, Florida got the 1 seed taking on Norfolk State. 2 seed for that one, St. John's, led by Rick Pitino, who's been having a great year. his second year at St. John's. They'll be taking on Omaha in their first game. 10 seed, John Calipari got Arkansas, the 10 seed, taking on number 7 Kansas, who's been having a pretty lackluster year for what Kansas is. 8 seed, UConn, taking on number 9 Oklahoma. 5 seed, Memphis, taking on number 12 Colorado State. 4 seed, Maryland, taking on 13 seed Grand Canyon. In the last little bracket, Missouri at the 6th seed, taking on Drake, the 11th seed, and 3 Texas Tech, taking on UNC Wilmington at the 14th seed. So, yeah, very interesting draw. Auburn, of course, is going to be the team we're going to talk about the most here. This is an Auburn-based show. So I like Auburn's chances to get to the round of 32. Did not happen last year, as many of us are well aware of, as the Auburn Tigers lost to Yale in what was a disgusting game to have watched personally. So Auburn did not win the SEC tournament. They got knocked out in the semifinals by Tennessee. Tennessee, of course, now the second team in the SEC tournament. They lost to Florida today. Florida also did the Lord's work and beat the crap out of Alabama yesterday. Scored a SEC record 104 points against Bama. But what kind of hurt Auburn, what hurt Auburn against Tennessee? I mean, they did not get points off the bench. 3 points were scored from the bottom 4. Chaney Johnson ended up making a 3-pointer, but other than that, Tahad Pettiford 0 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3-point line. Semo missed a shot. Jaheim Hudson didn't take any shots. And you had a great performance from Janai Broome, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and assists. But Auburn just couldn't do nothing offensively. Tennessee played a very they really just choked Auburn out offensively. They were not giving anything up that was easy. Zakai Ziegler was able to lock down Denver Jones for some parts of the game. Of course, Denver still ended up scoring 10 points, but 1 of 5 from the 3-point line. One of those misses was a block by Zakai Ziegler, who I fully believe is around the 5'8", 5'7" range. But great defensive player, SEC Defensive Player of the Year at that. But I thought Auburn pretty much secured the number 1 overall seed after the run they went on in the middle of the year, beating Kentucky, winning the SEC right there. I thought they definitely earned that just because of how tough of a season they had from the non-con to the conference schedule. It was a grueling process for Auburn. And, I mean, it gets no easier in March. March is, of course, the time where weird stuff happens. I mean, people were talking. I heard people say that Bama could be knocked out early. I think someone said Urban Morris might be able to knock them out, but I mean, they might not make it to the Sweet 16. Of course, you have instances where Duke might not make it past Mississippi State. I can see that very much happening. Florida and Tennessee are going to be 2 teams I'm going to be watching out for making it all the way. You could definitely have 4 SEC teams make it in the Final Four this year. But really, like, looking at Auburn, you got some things you got to fix. Things that have been very prevalent throughout this latter part of the year, where it's been a rough couple of weeks. It's been a rough few games in a row. Alabama pretty much just did what they wanted to do against Auburn in that second game, where Auburn lost 93-91. Texas A&M, Buzz is just the best at locking down Bruce Pearl's offenses at just all the time. It's weird that it happens all the time. It happened with Jabari and Walker. It's happened every year. I thought it would be a rare case to see Bruce Pearl beat Buzz. But looking ahead to Auburn, I mean, you have the National Player of the Year in Janai Broome, and you should be trying to feed him as much as possible, especially with, if you get Alabama State or St. Francis, you're going to get the best version of those teams because their backs are against the wall. They had to play a game already. They'll be a little bit more warmed up, and you don't want a repeat of last year. I think for Auburn, anything less than an Elite 8 is a failure of a season. Anything that's a Sweet 16, based on how this year's gone, is disappointing. Don't even start on a round of 64, round of 32 exit. That would just be blasphemous to see happen. The season Auburn has had has given really the hope that Auburn can, in fact, win a national championship this year. This team is built like that. You have guards that can rotate in and out. They can play both offense and defense, can make shots from everywhere like Miles Kelly can. You got a starting like front three that are really good. Chebek Mazzara, whenever he is not hot-headed, is able to do everything on the court. Score from the three-point line, not miss any free throws. Just taking over a game is what you can get for Chebek Mazzara. Dylan Cardwell, one of the best defensive players in the SEC, definitely got really got a shaft out of the all defensive teams for the SEC. And, of course, Jedi Broom, who can score from almost everywhere but the free throw line. And that's another thing. When I talk about Auburn not scoring on the bench versus Tennessee, Tennessee scored 25 of their 70 points from the free throw line. They shot 27 free throws against Auburn. And usually whenever I'm talking about free throws in an Auburn basketball game, it usually ends up with me saying the refs did not give Auburn any leeway and Auburn did not shoot many free throws because of this. Auburn shot 22. That's only 5 less than Tennessee. But you get 5 less free throw attempts, but you still miss the 9 that you had. If Auburn makes 90% of their free throws, they win the game. They win the game. Auburn shot 60% from the free throw line against Tennessee. And they got out rebounded. I don't think that was the key part in this game that affected it. It's just the fact that Auburn, when the going gets tough, Auburn did not show signs of getting tougher at the latter parts of the year. Free throws have got to be better in March in the madness. Free throw shooting wise, I mean, you take out Miles Kelly shooting 91, Denver Jones shooting 92, CBM is shooting 89, but Jedi Broom 60% from the free throw line. Todd Pettiford's under 80, Chaney Johnson 70, Dylan Cardwell is 33, Kai Howard 66, Gene Hudson 75, and Chris Moore 66.7. Are the guys who like consistently play. JP Pegues on here 80%, but you don't really get to see JP anymore based on how the rotations have kind of turned out. Auburn has to get these things fixed. If you're wanting to not have what would be seen as a disappointing season, what would be you were a regular season merchant in the sense of you did all this great stuff in the first part of the year. You tore up the regular season. You were the number 1 overall seed from the get-go. You stepped up and you took on Houston and beat them in Texas. You beat Iowa State. You took over. You took over Hawaii. You played tough versus Duke. You took down Ohio State. You beat Purdue pretty badly, and that's a team who I want to say I can't remember exactly what seed they are off the top of my head now, but a team nonetheless who could be a favorite to make it. They're a 4 seed. There you go. It could be a favorite for some people to make it and go the distance. And as the season goes along, you're still having this great year. You run into a speed bump with Florida, but you still didn't let that phase you. You go 27-2, 15-1 in the conference, and then the last week the season hits. You lose to Texas A&M. You lose to Alabama. And you're in the regular season off with 27-4, 15-3 in the SEC. But regardless of how good that season feels, the last week of the year left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth that you have people saying Auburn's not as good as the team as they think they are. Auburn's not as good as the team as they started off. There was definitely a drop-off period in how Auburn played from the first part of the year to the last week of the season. It was obviously, of course, Auburn showed signs of weakness early in the year. And throughout the year, there were definitely games where Auburn was not themselves. I look at Arkansas, 67-60, in games like that. Tennessee, 53-51. There were games where Auburn's offense was not able to score. South Carolina, 66-63. There were signs of weakness ahead of that, but Auburn was able to power through and find ways to win. Last week of the season, could not find a way to win. You beat Ole Miss, but I mean, you had a 3-0 sweep over Ole Miss this year. You didn't have the greatest game in the world. Janai Broome, 23 points and 11 rebounds. I think tying an Auburn record for double doubles in a season with a chance to beat that. I said 11 rebounds, 15 rebounds. Chance to beat that in the first game of or throughout somewhere along March Madness. But you almost took yourself out of the game again. You shot terribly from the three-point line. You were just saved by the fact that Ole Miss was having one of their worst days of the season shooting the ball. Auburn has weaknesses that they need to be mindful of as we get to the most important part of the year. You can't lose any more games. Any loss right now means you're out of the tournament. Auburn's ceiling right now, no surprise, based on how they played this year, Auburn's ceiling right now is the national championship. This is a national championship roster. Everything has been built up to this being a championship caliber roster. You have the National Player of the Year. You have so many players who could have been on the defense, all SEC defensive team, but could have been all American defensive players. You have all these guys, and you have games where you're just not playing to the talent you have. It's the Auburn way in almost every sport. I don't think Auburn's going to get knocked out early. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Auburn probably is going to be the team that I take all the way to the national championship. They're just that good. I'm going off of the potential that I see. Auburn has that in them. Auburn should be cutting down the nets based on how the season has gone, based on how their roster looks, based on how the adversity have gone through getting to this point. Auburn should be cutting down the nets. And they should be at the end of the One Shining Moment music video at the end of the season. It should be Auburn. It should be Bruce Pearl. Todd Pettiford should be in his freshman year cut with the little string from the net. Janai Broome should have a picture of himself holding a national championship trophy before he goes off to the NBA draft. That is how the season should end for Auburn. But the sour taste that we all have right now from what we saw in the last 4 games of the year. Really, I wouldn't say the last 4 games of the year, because 83. You lost to the Texas A&M game. I mean, Todd had a great game, but after that, I mean, Todd's not really been an X factor. I mean, he shot 0 of 8 against Tennessee, and of course, you had some games ahead of that where Janai Broome wasn't helping you out. The Kentucky game and A&M game, Miles Kelly and Todd Pettiford both led him in that. Again, I think Auburn is the national champion. I think I'll be picking Auburn as the national champion this year. They should be playing in the last game of the year in the national championship. That is how the season should go. But if things aren't fixed, if against Alabama State, Auburn just barely skates by because they were able to find a way to win despite players not shooting well, their bench not putting up points. Miles Kelly has to put up 80 3-pointers in the game just to get Auburn back into it. If Auburn gets rattled early, they're out of the game. And they will need to play some great defense to be able to get a chance to get back into it. Alabama State is not going to be a pushover. They had a great year in the SWAC. St. Francis, I don't know much about St. Francis, but I know Alabama State probably be the team Auburn plays in that first round. And then after that, you got Louisville and Creighton. Louisville just went the distance in the ACC tournament and lost to Duke in the championship. Now, I don't think the ACC is a great conference this year, but regardless, if a team's hot, a team's hot. Creighton also will not be a team to bat your eyes about either in the round 32. No matter who you get there, you get a couple of teams who can be considered in the blue blood category. They're not, but they're like the B tier or the A tier or B tier, whichever one's the next. I think S tier is number 1, then A tier after that. And then after, if you get to the Sweet 16, you're going to probably either meet Michigan or Texas A&M. And then that's going to leave you with playing Trey Donaldson, who has been having a phenomenal year, who I don't think he has any bad blood with Auburn, but, I mean, he probably wouldn't be opposed to putting up some big numbers versus Auburn. And that's been one of Auburn's weaknesses. And for a while now has been stopping those guards who are big, who were great on defense, who can just score from anywhere. And if, of course, you meet A&M again, I mean, I would be terrified to meet A&M in this tournament. Backs against the wall. Can Auburn overcome Buzz Williams? Can they get by just what A&M has been this year and has been over the past few years to Auburn? It's been the biggest kryptonite to Bruce Pearl in Auburn for the longest time. And I mean, if you get to that point, you got Iowa State again, Michigan State possibly, Marquette, Ole Miss, which, I mean, you beat Ole Miss 3 times in a row this year, but you struggled this past time around. It's tough to beat a team twice. It's tough to beat a team 3. It's definitely tough to beat a team 3 times in a row, but can you beat them 4 times in a row? I don't know. If I keep seeing what I saw to end the year, it'd be tough to see this team going past the Elite 8 or past Sweet 16. Depending on how, I mean, the round of 64 should be you should be able to out-talent your way. Round 32. But if Auburn plays rough, if it looks like they're how they've looked the past 4 games, I mean, Louisville, Creighton can knock Auburn out in the round 32 when you're talking about one of the biggest busts of a season ever. It'd be a tough look. It would be a tough look. We're going to continue this conversation outside this break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
And of course, available on thewarreport.com. Second page of the shop, you'll find the College Loop merch. The hat, the shirt, the whole 9 yards. Incredible items to wear in your entire life. And don't forget, that's only one way to support the channel. The best way you can support the channel is, of course, by liking, by subscribing, and by commenting, leaving your thoughts. What is the ceiling? What is the floor for Auburn basketball in the tournament this season? And, of course, don't forget to join the College Loop Bracket Challenge. Of course, link in the description below. And also, nice little QR code right there to scan. Winner of that bracket challenge gets 2 tickets to Auburn's 8A game this year. Right now, y'all, a little slow start to get people involved. I think right now I only got 2 people in it, and it's me and one of my buddies from college, AJ. And regardless of the fact, I don't plan on losing to AJ. So he will not be getting tickets from me. It will be tickets that I can take myself to the game. But regardless, join the College Loop Bracket Challenge for your chance to win 2 tickets to this year's spring game on April 12th. Of course, National Championship will be played on April 7th. And, of course, we'll know who wins the Bracket Challenge probably by the Sweet 16 if Auburn ends up not going all the way and half the brackets get knocked out. Because every Auburn fan is going to be told not to pick Auburn going ahead. But as we kind of conclude this conversation, be a little quick show, try to get 30 minutes. Final thoughts, really. I mean, Auburn has accomplished so much this year. Regardless of if you take March Madness out of the equation, if you take the tournament out of the equation, the regular season for Auburn, despite how you ended it, I still think you get an A+. It's still one of the best seasons Auburn's ever seen on the basketball court. 27-4 is nothing to be upset about. No matter how it ended, no matter those last 2 games, because you could have left it being 29-2, but you had some hiccups. And I mean, you end the tournament how you did, getting just missed free throw after missed free throw. The regular season is a success. You're the number 1 overall seed because of what you did in the regular season, not because you went the distance in the SEC tournament, not because I don't know, the rest of the league was terrible. You had the best season you've ever had in the toughest this conference has ever been. The SEC just broke an NCAA record by number of teams in the SEC tournament or in the March Madness tournament. SEC gets 14 teams every year. Now it was this year 16. So I did break that record, I guess. But Auburn got 14 out of 16 teams in March Madness. All you were missing was LSU and South Carolina. That's it. Everybody else got knocked out, or everybody else got in besides those two. And it's tough not to see the SEC having a lot of these teams go deep into March. I mean, you bring up Auburn, and of course they made Texas A&M. That if Auburn beats Texas A&M, you still get a team going to the Sweet 16 or to the Elite Eight. Regardless, you have two teams in the Sweet 16 right there. You still also have Ole Miss in the South bracket. In the East, I mentioned earlier, you have Mississippi State as an 8 seed. You have Vanderbilt and Bama as a 10-2 in the East. In the Midwest, you got teams like Texas in a play-in game, but also you got Kentucky. You got Tennessee right there. And in the West, Florida's a 1 seed, Oklahoma's a 9 seed, and Missouri is a 6 seed, and rounding out Arkansas is a 10 seed. This is the toughest the SEC has ever been. And in the toughest conference and the toughest version of the SEC you could possibly see, Auburn had their best season they've ever had. That is something you can hang your hat on and be proud of, no matter all the negativity that I just went through in the first half of the show, no matter how people feel about how the season ended. Auburn had the best regular season they've ever had, and regardless, it's an A+ for Auburn. But now as eyes turn to postseason, you need to find a way to fix what happened to you in the last 4 games. Because right now, I mean, if you go by teams that are hot right now, Auburn has not been playing like a hot team. They've been playing like a team who played hot through 24 games of the year, 20 games. I'm just going 20 games of the year. 20, let's see, do the math on that real quick. Last 3 games of the year was terrible. So 25 games. I don't know. Math is math, not mathing for me right now. 29 games, 28 games. There we go. 28 games. You played your best games of the year. You had some pickups with Florida and Duke, but overall, yeah, you played 28 great games. And then you coasted through the rest of the season. You got lazy. It was lackadaisical play. Effort was not there, and you got your butt handed to you by A&M, Alabama, and you had a tough game with Ole Miss in the SEC tournament. That was your last win. Was a tough game. Auburn should be the favorite to win the national championship. It shouldn't be Duke. I don't think Duke is going to make it that far. I mean, I might have Duke getting out. Shoot. Duke could be knocked down the round of 32 by Mississippi State. Duke will not make it will not make it to the Final Four. They're not going to be in the Elite Eight, I don't think. And that might be a knock on wood moment, might be a bad take. Duke has just not been playing a tough enough schedule for me to think that they are the team that the media wants this team to be. They're just not. Florida is going to be a team I'm going to be looking out for. I mean, again, I said it. Auburn could have 4 teams in the Final Four. Florida, you could have Tennessee, you could have Bama, and you could have Auburn, all in the Final Four. But regardless, I still think Auburn is the national championship favorite. I probably will still pick Auburn in my national championship, despite what I saw in the last 4 games of the year. I trust Bruce Pearl to get things turned around. I trust it wholeheartedly. So that's going to do it for this installment of the College Loop. Of course, this was a Selection Sunday reaction. I'll be back recording tomorrow for the Tuesday show, talking about this weekend's athletics. Talk about how gymnastics regular season ended on senior night. Baseball got a win over Vanderbilt. Softball still dealing with some struggles, but we'll continue that conversation on Tuesday. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in for the installment of the College Loop podcast. Don't forget, join the College Loop Bracket Challenge if you want a chance to win 2 tickets to Auburn's 8A game in April. And of course, don't forget to check us out on social media platforms, all of them: Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works, always the College Loop. Check us out, audio versions of the show on Spotify, Podcast, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. And with all being said, this installment of the College Loop podcast. And as always, War Eagle.